Welcome back again to Open Door Center for Spiritual Living. It's a lovely Sunday. The sun is starting to shine. The clouds are shifting. Isn't it a wonderful thing? And we have a talk this morning, a message with a rather unusual title. It's called Stuff Happens. Let's see. I got something to say about that, don't I? Yeah, that's a kind of interesting topic, an idea. You know, we've all seen that bumper sticker that says something similar to that, doesn't it? Yes. Yes, okay, we won't go there out loud, but you know what I'm talking about. So, but you know, do things just happen? Do they just like plop out of nowhere? Well, I don't know. We're going to consider that today. But before we do, I want to share with you, I'm so fortunate. It's always amazing, excuse me, how things drop in at the exact, precise, perfect time. I was on my minister's listserv on an email that I get from that last night late, and this came through. It's called Religious Truth, and it's kind of the idea of stuff, what happens with stuff, based on the different philosophical teachings of various religions. So in Taoism, we need James Cox here, don't we? In Taoism, stuff happens. In Buddhism, if stuff happens, it really isn't stuff. In Hinduism, this stuff has happened before. In Islam, if stuff happens, it's the will of Allah. In Catholicism, stuff happens because you deserve it. I'm so glad we don't teach that here. In Protestantism, work harder or stuff will happen. Got that Protestant work ethic thing. In materialism, whoever dies with the most stuff wins. In atheism, I don't believe that stuff. For the militant agnostic, I don't know stuff and you don't know anything either. In Judaism, why does stuff always happen to me? I think Catholicism might know that one pretty well too. For the eco-spiritual realm, compost happens. It's all good stuff. In Rastafarianism, let's smoke this stuff. I read that and I was like, oh, I got to do that now tomorrow. And the minister who sent that out to the listserv said, and of course we're leaving out New Thought. I manifested this stuff. So I thought that was pretty sweet. Isn't that cute? But does stuff just happen? You know, how do things just seem to just happen? And, you know, what is that all about? I came in here Wednesday evening to get ready for our Complaint-Free World class. And, you know, along the way I was doing things and I flushed the toilet. It did not fill. And I went, okay. And of course part of me went, what's that about? What's in your consciousness, minister? And so I did what I usually do. This is not new. It's happened before. I filled the back of the tank up with a pitcher. Just so happens we have a pitcher here for that very perfect purpose. And so I said, well, let's try it again. And I flushed it and I walked away. And a few minutes later I walked back in and it didn't fill again. And I moved my bracelet from one place to the other after saying a few choice words and thinking you're not on day one anymore, honey, back to zero. This has been really interesting. It's been lots of fun. Katie came in. She's my assistant for the class. She helped me and I said, oh yeah, by the way, wash the toilet. It doesn't seem to be filling correctly after it's flushed. And so between talking to Katie and us setting up and getting ready, I kept running in the bathroom, flushing, and it didn't fill. And 18 people showed up for class. And we have one bathroom. And I said, oi, they. That was not a complaint. It was simply a statement of awareness. Thank you. Okay, I'm learning to split some serious hairs there. As I'm sure the rest of you with that. But yeah, it is a complaint-free zone. Today the toilet works fine. I flushed it like 27 times before you got here. Slightly paranoid, you know, and pitcher in hand. And it filled every time. You know, what? Okay? Before I got married many years ago, back in the, 100 years ago, back in the 80s, he's my ex now. Okay, my ex-husband and I had 4 cars between the two of us. There's only 2 of us, right? When it was me and him getting married. Okay, the child did not drive yet. The other child, the one that was already there, none of those vehicles were working well. And I remember reading Louise Hay at the time and going, I know this has something to do with me, but I don't know what. I mean, I literally got in the car one day and shut the driver's door, and the mirror, the left-hand mirror, I was like, really? Is that what's going on? 3 days before I get married. Lovely. It is an interactive universe. You would think that I would have listened, you know. And the marriage was great, and I'm so grateful for the child and for the experience and all of the things that came from that. But it does seem often that things just happen, and there seems to be no rhyme, no reason, no cause, or anything. I just think it's very bizarre. Yet we teach in this teaching, we know in this teaching in Science of Mind, that that bumper sticker that says stuff happens isn't altogether true. Because we understand that we're living in a universe that is really exact in its perfection. And what goes out must come back in that law of cause and effect. It's so exact that the founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, wrote, every man must pay, and he meant women too, thank you, every one must pay the price for that which he or she receives. And that price is paid in mental and spiritual coin. We've even heard that the mere flap of a butterfly's wings on one side of the world can cause seismic activity to happen deep in the ocean on the other side of the continent. How tricky is that? Well, again, to go back to Ernest, from Practical Application of Science of Mind, circa 1958, he tells us we are not caught in a universe controlled by a blind force. We are in the midst of, and part, and parcel, may I add, of an intelligent, continually creative, dynamic, and conscious activity. Think about God as a verb, not just a thing, a place, a face, a personality, a persona, an attribute. We talk a lot in this teaching about the law of cause and effect, and how whatever it is that is contained within the sound of our song, our vibration, our words, our thoughts, all of that goes out there and is brought back to us in perfect measurement with what we are sending out. Now, you know, I'm here to tell you that I've been practicing this belief system for a number of years. And I tend to get a little freaked out when toilets don't automatically do what I tell them to do, okay? Even if I can't control the weather, and, you know, like, I believe that we can. Why not, right? If it's an interactive universe, if the law does what the law does, okay. So let's look at that. How many of you have been doing this stuff for a long time? Some of you for like decades, lifetimes, yeah, eons, I know. Right, me too. Have you ever had those things happen where no matter what you seemed to be sending out, no matter how clear you thought you were, what was coming back didn't look like what you had ordered? Kind of like you go to a restaurant and order filet mignon and they come back with a plate of Spam. I don't think so. You know, send that mess back to the kitchen. You go. Well, again, Ernest Holmes tells us we cannot demonstrate one iota beyond our mental ability to conceive and steadfastly to embody. Infinite as creative power is, receptive and quick as it is, it can only become to us what we first think into it. God can do for us only what God can do through us. Yeah, this is why where we are in consciousness is so incredibly impactful and important. He goes on to say, if we are to have an active faith, the faith of God, instead of the faith in God. Now get that, the faith of God, rather than a faith in God. Our thought must be centered in universal mind. We are convinced that under divine law, all things are possible if we can only believe and we work in conformity with the principles of the law. Here he says a piece that for me has been so reassuring and important, where he tells us such a faith does not spring full-orbed into being, but grows by knowledge and experience. No matter what the outside appearance, we must cling steadfastly to the knowledge that God is good, that God is all, underneath, above, and round about. There is no place where that divine presence is not. So today we're going to look at a few things that tend to possibly be going on when what we send out brings back only spam. If you'll pull up the next slide, Kathy. Many of you know that in my teaching I love to use the analogy of the iceberg. And this is a wonderful, wonderful picture. If we think about our conscious minds as the part above the waterline, and the unconscious, the subconscious, if you will, is what is below the waterline. And the subconscious is tremendously important. It contains a lot of stuff. We recognize in this teaching that we hold close the awareness that what we think, what is in our minds and hearts and our consciousness and our unconsciousness is what goes out and produces effect. It is what brings back the stuff that we live with day in and day out. Very often we become dismayed when we work diligently on our belief systems, when we write, when we pray, when we treat, when we know, when we meditate, when we do all those things, when we constantly move ourselves back to a place of higher awareness of what might be called high watch in our minds. Only what keeps coming back is that same waiter with that same plate of spam, even though we know we never thought once something that was called spam, okay? Never believed that was ours. So then we've got to go back to two places, guys. It's really pivotal. The first one is, what do we believe about the divine? Do we believe in that age-old being that lives on a cloud, that sends down goodness, that sends down punishment, that is kind of, not to inflict on any diagnosis, but is kind of bipolar in nature, giving here, taking there, beating into shape, treating us as little children? Do we believe in that? Because constantly, what I have seen is that it's necessary to go back and say, is this what I believe in? Sure, it's what I was taught as a kid, It's even what I was taught as an adult. But is that my truth? Is that what I want to claim as my world right now? And my answer for that is always a succinct, ain't no way, baby, okay? X, blank, 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 no, okay? You got that, right? The other thing we have to do is we have to look at what we believe, and if we believe that this stuff that we're teaching here really works. And it was so funny one day, actually one night, sitting in a class I was teaching, having a level of doubt that was just almost insurmountable. What I heard was one of my former teachers' voices in my ears. And what she said was, you either believe this works or you don't. Which is it? And I said, well, I'm not backing down now, okay? You met one mean little woman when you met me, okay? I believe this works. I would die knowing it, okay? If that's where we have to go, then fine, I'm in, okay? So what's going on when we have that stuff going on, when we're ordering filet mignon, when we're ordering the very best of life, when we're knowing harmony in relationships and perfect health in our bodies and abundance in our finances and amazing peace on this planet, in every country, in every place, and yet what we see back, what we feel, what seems to be our reality is something else. What's going on? Let's flip to the next slide. Well, at this point, I have to look within and ask myself, oh, is Anxiety Girl on the roll again? Remember, she's able to jump to the worst conclusion in a single bound. Any of you ever been like that before? No, not me. Anybody ever live with the consciousness of Murphy's Law? What can go wrong will go wrong? That's not a complaint. I'm not moving my bracelet, thank you. But you know, they even talk about that in the Bible. We don't get much about, going on with the Bible here on Sundays here. It might happen more, you never know. But think about Job. Job, if you go back and read him, Job worried and worried and worried and worried. And what happened? What he was worried about came true. Hello? If we spend 15 minutes a day in meditation, clearing up our consciousness, and the other 23 hours and 45 minutes, whatever it is, I can't add, you know that, okay? We've been there. I'm a minister for a reason. It doesn't require math. No, sorry, I'm kidding. But, if we spend just a few minutes holding the high watch and the rest of it holding the death watch, what are we going to get? Spam. Yeah, you could call it another name, but you know what I mean, okay? Now, there's an article that Ernest wrote years ago that's really fantabulous. You can go online and pull it up. It's called Beware, the Contagious Disease of Anxiety. Let's see. I'm going to read a little piece of it, and it's not too short, so hang with me, okay? All anxiety is based on a feeling of insecurity. Jesus said that we should take no thought for tomorrow, but live in such complete faith today that tomorrow will take care of itself. Perhaps if we were to follow the teaching of Jesus, we would be relieved of most of the strain of living. He knew a great deal more about these things than we do, and he told us of a friend in whom we may confide, who will share all our burdens and finally lift us out of unhappiness and fear. Jesus called this friend our Father who art in heaven. Not just your Father or my Father, but everybody's Father, the Father of us all, the Spirit that is over all, in all, and through all, and closer to us than our very breath. Didn't he say that God is in heaven, and heaven is right where you are, within and around you? Yeah. We all need a friend, one in whom we can rely, one who will always be there. We need a friend whose wisdom is great, in whom we may have implicit confidence, and one who will never let us down. This thing called life, and he capitalizes that. Being earnest, he does that a lot. This thing called life had it all figured out long before you and I were born, and it implanted a spiritual self within each of us, the real you. This friend is always with you, goes wherever you go, knows everything you think, even the complaints, and can answer every need. It is not necessary to be anxious at all. It is not necessary to be afraid of anything. So perhaps we just need to move closer to that awareness that we are never alone when we feel anxiety. Another idea about where some of that stuff comes from might come from our friends Abraham through the persona of Esther Hicks, where when we look at those teachings, we are told that when we come here, when we come into this baby body, we have an agenda of sorts. We have a script. To some degree, we've agreed to some of that stuff. Maybe not all of it. And we certainly might not have said yes to the mechanism through which it comes. But on some level, we have conspired with the universe to bring about this experience of life, to learn certain things. Now, I have some ideas about what some of my learnings were. I am not going to tell you that always I think the mechanism is fun. There have been places where illness or impoverishment or downright life and death kind of experiences have been the catalyst for tremendous change. I think I would have picked an easier, softer way if I'd have been real conscious of it. But what we know about all those things is that they're causal in nature. They cause us to be who we are and how we are in the world. They cause us to see life through a certain set of lenses. Lens? Whatever. Okay? And to move from that place through growth, toward truth, toward an understanding of what we are here for, what we are doing, and what is yet for us to do. We come forth to purposefully create what Abraham calls contrast as a means, a mechanism to get clearer and clearer until we are so clear that what we are about cannot stay away from us. And I believe that what we are about is that spiritual implant, that thing Ernest talks about, that truth, that self with a capital S. You know, it ain't going to go away. Doesn't matter what you do, you can't kill it. You can't get rid of it. That spark of life will be there regardless. Now here's another idea about where sometimes those things come from. We might call them blessings, but that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek term. We speak often in metaphysics of coming purposefully into the physical realm, of even doing things. If you look at Louise Hay, she says we choose our own parents. Well, I don't know that I chose my parents. I'm sure that I chose that kind of home life. I'm sure that I chose certain religious teachings, okay, because they have been very instrumental in moving me from them to this. Yes, what a gift that has been. Some of us may even come in taking on roles to be causal in the lives of other people. When I think about that, I am reminded of the book Who Dies by Stephen Levine, where he talks about, if you don't know Stephen, he has worked a lot with families who had children who were dying, with the children and also with the parents. He relates in his book Who Dies a story of a mom with an 8-year-old son who was terminally ill. And this mom had a pretty standard mainstream background, which is a wonderful thing and at the same time can be very devastating if you believe that when your loved one dies, they're gone, okay? And I have never, even when I was hook, line, and sinker in the experience of another teaching, a more mainstream teaching, did I believe that we closed the door at that point of death in terms of being able to communicate with those people. I've had too many experiences where dead people talk to me in my dreams, and I woke up going, what the stuff was that, Okay? Yeah, I've had experiences that I just, they just were too real, where they came back and they said, I'm great. I'm fine. I love you. Be happy. Live your life to the fullest. Yeah, it was amazing. So, I looked at that and I said, gosh, that's not the end of the realm, That's not the end of the world. But if we come in to be causal in nature in someone else's life, perhaps we do what Levine talks about. His way of working with this mom was phenomenal. He said, what if before you came in and before your child came in, you were two little souls sitting on a fence, wherever it is that souls are before they come here, before they come into the physical realm with us. And one soul said to the other, I need to go back and have this kind of experience, and I'm going to leave really early. That's what I need to do. And the other soul, the mother soul, said, okay, I'll come with you. I'll be the mom. I'll walk through that, and I'll grow too. That changes the nature of everything when we look at people like Hitler, when we look at people like Osama bin Laden, when we recognize that maybe that was a choice. Now, I can't tell you whether it was or not, but for me, it sure does change the way I look at things when I think about that. Yeah. So maybe those experiences are simply blessings. We could refer to them as stuff happens. Yeah, that feels good, doesn't it? And maybe a fourth idea that comes again from Ernest Holmes about how things show up in our world when we didn't exactly order that is what he called race consciousness. That's a funny term, okay? Until we look at it through the lens that Carl Jung used. There we go. when he spoke of the collective unconscious or the collective subconscious, that thing that is a repository for every thought, every feeling, all that has ever been, everything that has ever existed from every one of us, everywhere, every species, every planet, every realm, every potentiality, and not just what happened, but what's going on now and what is yet to come. It's a place of everything. It's a moment of complete, perfect potentiality. And we're picking things up from that and taking things, from that and giving back to it all the time. If you don't believe me, think about this. Have you ever gone to the hospital and gone to the nursery and looked through the window at the new babies and felt the energy? Yeah. You picked up on that newness. We picked up when we did that, of that brilliance, of that, that is simple. That is as pure as potentiality gets in the physical form, I think. Is that newly born, birthed human, critter, thing, child, whatever it is, spider, even if you don't like them. Yeah. That we're swimming all the time in this soup, if you will, of everything, of allness. So if something is coming back to you in your world and you don't like it, maybe it's not yours. Maybe it hitched a ride. Maybe you can dump it. Tell it to go away. Tell it to go back to the nothingness from which it came and watch your life change. So what are we going to do with all this stuff? We got stuff, right? I got stuff. You got stuff. Anybody in here not got stuff? Here. Wait a minute. Let's give it to Sarah May. Because that's as close to no stuff as we get, I like the song that Karen Mitchell sings where she says, "Here comes nothing." I always break that word a lot of times in my mind to, here comes no thing. Here comes that which is pure potentiality. It hasn't aligned with anything. It's just wide open. Yeah. Hey, gorgeous. Hey, gorgeous. I love it. What are we going to do with all that stuff? Well, yesterday, if you don't know, let me back up a minute. We have an amazing new thing in our world, in part from Reverend Dr. Petra Weldis from Dallas Center for Spiritual Living. She and a few other hardy individuals have decided to create a thing called Spiritual Living Network Radio. It's really cool. You can Google that, Spiritual Living Network Radio. If you want the link, let me know and I can email it to you as well. Hi. Hi. I love you so much. You're just awesome. Yes. We could just stand here and watch Sarah May for a while. I would get it. I don't know about you guys. It would be great. But so yesterday I was listening to a program called Conscious Life Jam, where they have the great minds of the one mind, okay? Some of our amazing New Thought teachers and preachers and crazy people like me on there. And I was listening to Reverend Mark Anthony Lord from Chicago, from Bodhi Spiritual Center. He is absolutely, he rocks. Do you know the mean age at Bodhi is 38 years old? It really changes the nature we look at things. Most science of mind communities are like 100 and older. No offense to anyone who's closer to 100 than I am. But I love Mark Anthony, and I love his teachings. He's beautiful. I'm going back to Chicago to just sit and be in the zone there soon. I don't know when, but soon. So he talked about how important it is for us to really, really, really build that relationship with a divine presence, that spiritual implant, that spiritual self that lives within us. He says this is where we go. That's where the question that the radio announcer posed to him was, you write a lot in your material and you speak a lot at your center about forgiveness and how incredibly powerful that is. How is it you actually do that in your own spiritual practice? Because forgiveness is hard, you guys. I mean, I've had an issue with this one individual for like 3 years now. I'm like, every so often it'll come up, I'm like, get over it, Barbara! And yet, comes back up. So I was really interested to hear his response. And his response was all about, you develop that relationship with that God stuff within you, you begin to speak and talk and act and write and communicate with that divine stuff within you, just like it is your very best friend, because it is. Ernest says so. You begin to have a relationship with it, and when you are in your humanness, and you are not about to ever forgive, ever, in 10 more lifetimes, that which has been done to you, you say to that highest self, help me out here a little bit. Be the friend I need in this moment. Do for me what I cannot do in and of myself. So if we go to this present when we're stressed, this presence when we're stressed, it gets easier. If we go to that presence when we think, when we are living the fallacy, believing that we are totally alone, singular in nature, came in alone, going to die alone, been alone, nobody loves me, when I eat worms. No, excuse me, that's my song, isn't it? Okay. No, really, when we get to that place, we can say to that highest self, I have my head stuck in a lot of stuff. Hello? Would you please help me and do a, like a brainectomy or whatever you want to call it? That pure potentiality, that stuff is our highest consciousness. And it's always with us. There is no place where it is not. We're never stuck. Okay? I love this experience the last couple of years. I'm not much of a dream watcher. I know some of you do that, pretty consistently, and you're very good at it. And I believe that that's kind of like a muscle. You can tone it and work it, and it gets stronger. If you keep a piece of paper and a pen next to your bed, you can, ask yourself stuff and then go to sleep and you'll get the answers. But in the last couple of years, I've had this experience where I'll be, for instance, I'll be working on something for us here on a Sunday. And I'll take a nap or go to bed at night and get up. And the answer is right there. It's at the very cusp of my awareness. It's really important to write it down, too. If I go back to sleep most of the time, I don't remember it, But that you can begin to work with that divine stuff and say, I've got this problem with my body, and I don't really know what to do. Would you talk to me here, okay? I believe we're opening up to the same level of awareness that Edgar Cayce tapped into, that Ernest Holmes tapped into, that all the great mystics and sages of the world, past and yet to come, are moving into. And I believe that that's within, and really the core component of each and every one of us. So let's go from this place this week and make a date, okay? I don't know about you guys. There's like a 4-year-old inside of me. She's cute. Sometimes she's a pain, okay? She has a lot of stuff, okay? What can I say? But I like to treat her. I like to take her places, and I like to do fun things with her, Make a date with that person inside of you. Make a date with the wisdom that you are. Sit down and have a communication with it. Sit down and journal to it. Write it a letter. You can say, I don't know what I'm doing this for. It doesn't matter, okay? Your highest self will know. So listen. I love you. Thank you. And so before we close up this part of our service, I want to ask you, how many of y'all watch the news? Yeah. Well, a couple of weeks ago, this blessing in my life happened. They came and worked on my cable and disconnected the TV part. So I don't have news anymore. I don't even know what the weather's going to do unless I look at my iPhone, and it lies a lot. So it's kind of interesting. But I know that if you've been watching the news, or if you've been online, if you've been doing anything, you know that the situation with Syria is really pretty sad. It's just pretty scary, isn't it? What I have is a copy of a prayer that I got came across, what else? Facebook, you guys. Say what you will, okay? My spiritual food doesn't require a Bible or anything else. I can get it from Facebook, of all places. This was written by the former spiritual leader of the organization once known as United Centers for Spiritual Living, that is Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn. It is a prayer for Syria and for all of us. And I encourage you, instead of turning on the news and listening to what they tell you about Syria, let me not break a limb here. I got some more for the other side of the room. Here we go. Instead of doing that, do this. Margaret Mead reminds us that the only thing that has ever changed the world is a small group of committed, thoughtful people. We are rich in resource. We are rich in talent. We are rich in the Word. Let's use it, you know. This is what we are here for. I love you. Thank you.